There was once a man who stopped trying to impress others, and within 5 years, he built an empire no one thought possible. There was a young woman who deleted every distraction, devoted herself to mastery, and stunned the very people who once ignored her. The truth is simple: when you stop trying to be seen, you begin to shine. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Earl Nightingale, and tonight I want to share with you a truth so profound, yet so often forgotten in our noisy, crowded world. It is this: the most powerful thing you can ever do is focus entirely on yourself, your growth, your discipline, your purpose, and in time the world will be astonished by what you become. We live in an age where people spend more time watching others' lives than living themselves. We scroll through lives, compare achievements, envy success, and forget that greatness was never built by imitation. You cannot become extraordinary while chasing the applause of ordinary minds. The man who spends his hours improving himself, even quietly, will soon find the same world that once ignored him standing in awe. When you begin to focus on yourself, something remarkable happens. Your energy, once scattered among opinions and distractions, begins to consolidate. You start to feel your own power returning to you, steady, calm, and unshakable. The noise fades and clarity appears. You start waking earlier, reading more, speaking less. You begin to outgrow conversations, environments, and habits that no longer align with where you're headed. The world may not notice at first, and that's the beauty of it. True transformation happens in silence. Like roots deep beneath the soil, growth unseen is growth most stable. Every page you read, every hour you work in solitude, every temptation you resist, these are the quiet revolutions that one day erupt into visible greatness. Let me remind you of something timeless. Success is not something you pursue. It is something you attract by the person you become. That is the secret. You need not chase recognition, you need only chase improvement. The world eventually bows to excellence. It cannot ignore the man or woman who has mastered themselves. If you truly wish to shock everyone, don't announce your plans, announce your results. Let your discipline speak for you. Let your habits define you. Let your consistency stun those who underestimated you. Remember, while others are distracted by what's trending, you are quietly building what's timeless. The world rewards focus, not noise. Those who mind their own growth soon become the ones everyone notices. It's a simple law of nature, one that has governed human achievement since the dawn of civilization. A man who knows where he's going and quietly works toward it will, in time, outpace the restless crowd chasing everything and catching nothing. The world, in its distraction and constant chatter, is full of people trying to be seen. But the truth is, visibility without value fades like smoke. What endures is substance, and substance is born only through focus. Every person has within them a spark of potential, but that spark requires the fuel of concentration to become a flame. The great minds of history understood this. Edison, Lincoln, Da Vinci, none of them were known for their noise. They were known for their unwavering dedication to a single pursuit, a commitment so deep that the world had no choice but to take notice. The same law applies to you and me. When we stop scattering our attention and begin to pour it wholly into our own development, something extraordinary begins to take place. We start to rise, not by chance, but by design. The average person spends his life responding to the world, reacting to circumstances, and following trends. But the man who decides to focus on his own path becomes the creator of his own circumstances. While others drift, he directs. While others talk, he acts. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. He understands that noise is a substitute for progress and that the applause of others is fleeting. The man of focus seeks mastery, not validation. He knows that each hour spent sharpening his craft adds invisible strength, the kind that reveals itself only when it is needed most. Noise is seductive. It gives the illusion of movement, the comfort of belonging to the crowd, but it steals time, energy, and peace. It tempts us to compare, to compete, to question our worth based on external measures. Focus, on the other hand, is silent. It requires solitude and patience. It asks us to turn inward and confront our weaknesses, to work not for attention but for transformation. It is not glamorous, but it is powerful. Those who choose it gradually separate themselves from the masses. They grow while others gossip, build while others boast, prepare while others procrastinate. In every field, business, art, science, or sport, those who truly excel are not the ones shouting the loudest, but the ones listening to their own inner direction. The painter lost in his work, the entrepreneur refining his idea, the athlete training before dawn, these are the quiet architects of greatness. Their focus builds a momentum that cannot be faked or hurried. And then one day, almost suddenly, the world looks up and says, "Where did they come from?" But they were there all along, quietly mastering their craft while others sought attention. The world rewards them. not because they demanded it, but because they earned it through the steady power of focus. Comparison is the thief of destiny. The moment a man begins to measure his worth against another, he hands over the keys to his own potential. It is an invisible prison, this habit of looking sideways, and yet so many willingly lock themselves inside it. From the earliest age, we are taught to compete, to prove, to outperform, to be better than someone else. But the truth is, no two destinies are alike. The measure of another man's progress has no bearing on your path, because your path is unique, and it demands your full attention, not your divided envy. When a person spends his energy watching others, he forgets to cultivate his own soil. The farmer who keeps his eyes on his neighbor's field neglects to water his own, and in time wonders why nothing grows. Life is much the same. The energy that could have built something remarkable is wasted on resentment, imitation, and self-doubt. Comparison blinds us to our own progress. It distorts reality, convincing us that someone else's chapter 10 means we are failing in our chapter 2. It makes us rush, panic, and abandon the rhythm of steady growth that all great achievements require. A wise man once said, "The only person you should try to be better than is the person you were yesterday." That simple principle, lived daily, has built more successful lives than any competition ever could. For when you focus on your own improvement, you begin to experience the quiet satisfaction of progress. You start to notice small victories. Discipline where there was once distraction, understanding where there was once confusion, calm where there was once chaos. These are the signs of genuine advancement, the kind that no applause can measure. The great tragedy of comparison is that it distracts us from our own gifts. Every man and woman carries within them a talent, a strength, a calling that is distinct. Yet by comparing ourselves to others, we abandon our authenticity in pursuit of imitation. We begin to shape our lives according to someone else's design. And when that happens, even success feels hollow, for it is not truly ours. True fulfillment comes when you walk your own road, not when you arrive at someone else's destination. The world is full of noise, images, numbers, accolades, all whispering that you are behind. But behind what? Behind whom? There is no finish line in personal growth, no race in self-discovery. The only race worth running is the one between who you were and who you are becoming. If you win that race, you win every race. You will find that envy fades and gratitude takes its place. You will stop chasing validation and begin to seek purpose. You will no longer be moved by the illusion of others' success, because you will have discovered something far greater, your own. The man who understands this truth walks lighter, speaks less, and builds more. He knows that comparison robs him not only of joy but of destiny. For destiny demands individuality, and individuality thrives only in focus. Each morning he wakes. He competes only with yesterday's self, and each night he sleeps knowing he is moving closer to the life he was meant to live. Distraction is the modern enemy of greatness. Eliminate it ruthlessly. We live in an age where attention has become the most valuable currency, and yet most people spend it carelessly. Every vibration, every notification, every passing thought pulls at the edges of our concentration like tiny threads unraveling a great tapestry. The mind, once capable of deep, focused work, now flickers like a weak flame in the wind of endless noise. And because of this, many never discover what they might have become had they learned to guard their focus as fiercely as a treasure. Greatness has always belonged to the few who could give their undivided attention to one thing at a time. The inventor in his quiet workshop, the writer in his solitary study, the craftsman perfecting his skill in silence. Each of them understands that the mind, when disciplined, becomes an instrument of extraordinary power. But the distracted mind is like a blunt blade. It cannot cut through anything substantial. To create something meaningful, one must first reclaim command over his own attention. Distraction is subtle. It arrives disguised as connection, entertainment, or rest. It promises relief but delivers regret. A few minutes of diversion soon multiply into hours, and hours into days of lost purpose. The tragedy is that most never notice the cost, because distraction does not take suddenly. It erodes gradually. One moment you are on the path to mastery, the next, you are scrolling through the lives of others, mistaking motion for progress. To build anything of worth, one must learn the art of saying no. No to the unnecessary, no to the trivial, no to the constant demand for your awareness. There is a quiet strength that comes from deep work. When you shut out the noise and give yourself fully to a single task, you begin to experience a sense of peace unknown to the hurried mind. Time stretches, clarity sharpens, and ideas flow with surprising precision. This is the state from which all remarkable work emerges. It cannot coexist with distraction, for focus and distraction are opposites by nature. One builds, the other destroys. One brings fulfillment, the other emptiness. The man who learns to master his attention holds in his hands the power to master his life. Every great accomplishment begins with a decision to direct energy deliberately. The distracted person waits to feel motivated. The focused person acts regardless of feeling. While others chase every shiny object, he moves with purpose, undeterred by the noise around him. He understands that each moment of focus compounds, that every hour of concentration brings him closer to mastery. Distraction will always exist. It is part of the world we live in, but discipline determines whether it controls us or serves us. The truly successful are not those who have more time, they are those who waste less of it. They build invisible fortresses around their attention, allowing nothing trivial to trespass. In a world full of noise, they remain calm, centered, and unwavering, and because of that, they rise quietly to greatness. Discipline in silence creates results that speak loudly. There is a quiet dignity in the man who works without the need for recognition, who labors with focus while the world chases noise. In a time where everyone wishes to be seen, few choose to build in silence. Yet it is in that silence that character is formed, habits are refined, and destiny is shaped. The most successful people you will ever know rarely announce what they are doing. They let their consistency make the announcement for them. The louder a person seeks to appear, the less substance they often possess. True achievement has no need for applause. It stands on its own. Discipline is not a punishment, it is a path. It is the structure upon which all great lives are built. Without it, desire remains only a dream. The man who masters discipline becomes the architect of his own fortune. He does what needs to be done, not because he feels like it, but because it must be done. That is the quiet strength behind every extraordinary story. While others wait for the perfect moment, he creates it through consistent effort. He rises early, he plans his days, he follows through. No one sees the small choices, the sacrifices, the nights of repetition, but they are all recorded in the outcome. The results eventually become so undeniable that even those who once doubted him cannot ignore his success. Silence is the ally of discipline. It shields you from distraction and allows your mind to deepen its roots. The man who works in silence learns patience. He understands that great results do not appear suddenly. They are cultivated over time like seeds growing beneath the soil. You cannot rush growth and you cannot fake progress. The quiet worker learns to trust the process, to take satisfaction not in attention but in advancement. The absence of noise allows him to hear his own direction clearly, to adjust, to improve, to persist. Most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they crave immediate recognition. They want the world to see their effort before it has matured into excellence. But the disciplined person knows that success revealed too early is easily destroyed. He keeps his vision private, his work steady, and his goals sacred. There is something sacred about the silence of self-improvement. It belongs only to the individual, a bond between who he is and who he is becoming. In time, the results of disciplined silence become impossible to conceal. The transformation is visible in the quality of his work, in the confidence of his demeanor, in the peace that surrounds him. People will ask how he did it, where he came from, what his secret was. But there was no secret, only daily discipline practiced in quiet determination. The world eventually applauds, but the applause is no longer necessary, for he has already won the greater victory. Mastery over himself. Growth is not a race. It is a deliberate, daily commitment. In a culture that glorifies speed, where everyone wishes to arrive before they begin, it takes wisdom to understand that the finest things in life are built slowly. A tree does not rush its branches, nor does the sun hurry its rise. Nature understands the rhythm of development, and so should we. The man who tries to grow overnight finds his foundation weak, but the one who advances patiently, step by step, creates strength that endures. Progress is not measured by haste, it is measured by direction. A slow climb toward the right goal is worth infinitely more than a fast sprint toward the wrong one. The greatest mistake people make is confusing movement with growth. They fill their days with activity and call it advancement, never realizing that motion without meaning leads nowhere. Growth requires intention. It demands reflection, correction, and perseverance. It asks you to show up on the days you least feel like it, to work quietly when no one is watching, to be faithful in the small things. True growth is not a sudden leap forward. It is the accumulation of small, consistent victories that, over time, build something extraordinary. Every person wants results, but few want the process. They wish to skip the struggle and arrive fully formed, not understanding that the struggle itself is what makes them capable. The caterpillar must endure the confinement of the cocoon before it can fly. The athlete must endure fatigue before he can triumph. The businessman must face failure before he can lead. Growth demands discomfort, and the man who embraces it grows wiser, stronger, more capable with each trial. Those who rush the process rob themselves of depth. They become brittle, easily broken when tested because they never allowed time to temper them. Patience is the companion of real growth. It is not idle waiting but active preparation. While others chase shortcuts, the patient man invests in understanding. He reads, he listens, he observes, he practices. He knows that mastery is not a single act but a lifetime pursuit. There are no quick roads to excellence, only steady, deliberate steps. Each day he moves a little closer to the person he envisions, knowing that every small act compounds over time into monumental change. Growth is also personal. It cannot be compared or copied. Every life unfolds at its own pace, and the wise man honors his rhythm. He does not envy another's speed nor despise his own pace. He understands that growth happens both in action and in stillness, in success and in failure. Each season of life contributes something necessary. The slow years teach patience, the fast years test endurance. Together they form balance. In a world obsessed with instant success, the man who commits to steady growth stands apart. He is calm while others rush, deliberate while others react, certain while others doubt. He knows that true growth cannot be seen day by day, but one morning he will look back and realize he has become everything he once hoped to be. Mastery begins the moment you stop seeking applause. As long as a man's effort is tied to the approval of others, he remains a servant to their opinions. But the instant he shifts his attention inward, toward improvement rather than attention, he begins to master his craft and himself. Applause is temporary, but mastery is eternal. One fades when the crowd grows silent, the other grows stronger in solitude. The pursuit of recognition is shallow, but the pursuit of excellence is profound. When a man ceases to ask, "Will they notice me?" and instead asks, "Will this make me better?" he steps onto the road that few have the courage to walk. We live in an age that confuses attention with achievement. Many shout before they have learned to speak well, and display before they have built something worth showing. But the great achievers, the true masters of any field, understand that applause cannot teach them anything. Only practice can. They disappear into their work, repeating, refining, reshaping until perfection becomes instinct. It is a lonely path at first, for the world is drawn to the noise of early recognition, not the silence of true preparation. Yet in time, those same people who ignored your quiet discipline will be astonished by its results. Mastery demands humility. The humility to admit how much you do not yet know and the courage to continue anyway. It is the recognition that greatness cannot be rushed, that true skill is born through thousands of unseen hours. The man who seeks applause wants the reward before he earns it. The man who seeks mastery works until he no longer needs it. He understands that the satisfaction of doing something well is far greater than the momentary cheer of an audience. Applause lasts seconds, self-respect lasts a lifetime. There is also a hidden peace in mastery. When your focus shifts from validation to creation, your work becomes sacred. You no longer perform, you practice. You no longer chase, you build. You no longer depend on others to tell you that you are enough, for the work itself begins to affirm it. Each improvement, no matter how small, becomes its own reward. The musician who practices for hours to perfect a single note, the craftsman who sands every edge until it feels just right, the thinker who rewrites a sentence until it captures truth. These are the quiet architects of mastery. Applause comes and goes, but the mastery you build remains. It becomes part of you, woven into your character, visible in the precision of your actions, the confidence of your speech, and the calm with which you face difficulty. When you stop seeking recognition, you gain something far greater: control over your work, your time, and your destiny. The applause you once sought will eventually come, but by then it will no longer matter, because you will have discovered something infinitely more powerful than approval: the quiet joy of excellence for its own sake. What you do in private will one day echo in public. Every great accomplishment, every astonishing performance, every moment of apparent brilliance is merely the visible tip of an unseen mountain of preparation. The world sees only the result, the speech delivered, the business built, the athlete's victory. But it does not see the hours, the solitude, the doubts overcome in silence. That is where success is truly born, in those quiet, uncelebrated hours when no one is watching and no praise is given. The man who learns to give his best when no eyes are upon him builds a strength that no crowd can grant and no failure can take away. There is a principle as old as time. Private discipline always precedes public reward. A man cannot perform beyond his preparation. The musician who seems effortless on stage has played those notes until his fingers moved as naturally as breath. The leader who commands respect has spent countless nights in thought, study, and self-examination. The craftsman who creates beauty has repeated the same movements until precision became instinct. Every public victory is purchased through private sacrifice. Those who wish to shine before others must first learn to labor alone. Modern society has made people impatient for recognition. They want to be seen before they are ready, to be applauded before they are proven. But greatness does not bloom under constant observation, it grows in the dark. Like seeds buried deep in the soil, your potential must be nourished away from view. In that private place, you make mistakes without shame, learn without judgment, and refine without interference. It is the crucible of character, the hidden workshop where competence is forged. And when the time is right, the results reveal themselves effortlessly, not because you demanded attention, but because mastery cannot remain hidden forever. The world rewards those who are consistent when no one else cares. That is the true test of a person's commitment, to show up for their own future even when there is no audience. The man who trains before dawn studies when others sleep, or plans while others talk builds an invisible advantage. He does not need motivation from outside sources, for his discipline comes from within. In time, his quiet persistence forms habits, and those habits form destiny. The remarkable thing about private work is that it transforms not only skill but also spirit. Each hour of honest effort deepens self-respect. Each act of integrity strengthens confidence. Eventually, the applause of others becomes unnecessary because the individual has already earned his own approval. And then, when the world finally does notice, it is not surprise they feel but admiration, for deep down they recognize authenticity when they see it. The results of private effort cannot be faked. They carry a weight, a quiet authority that cannot be manufactured. The man who honors his unseen hours earns his place in the seen world, for what he does in private becomes the echo of who he truly is. True confidence comes from competence. Earn it. The world often mistakes loudness for confidence, but real confidence does not shout, it simply exists. It is calm, certain, and silent because it is built upon something solid: skill, understanding, and mastery. The man who truly knows his craft has no need to boast. He moves with assurance, speaks with clarity, and acts with quiet conviction. His confidence is not borrowed from others' opinions or inflated by praise. It is rooted in the knowledge that he has paid the price for his ability. There is a kind of strength that comes only from knowing you have done the work, and there is no substitute for it. Confidence without competence is nothing more than noise. It is the illusion of strength without the substance. Many people try to appear confident before they are capable, and as a result, they crumble at the first sign of challenge. But the person who has earned his confidence through study, repetition, and discipline stands unshaken when difficulty arrives. He does not need to pretend because he knows. He has seen himself fail and improve, stumble and rise, and each repetition has built an inner certainty that cannot be faked. Real confidence is not a pose, it is a product. To earn competence, one must embrace the slow, often unglamorous process of learning. It is built hour by hour, mistake by mistake. The craftsman sanding his work for the 100th time, the speaker rehearsing again after midnight, the athlete refining a single movement for weeks. Each is constructing the foundation of true confidence. The average person avoids this process because it lacks immediate reward, but the wise man knows that every repetition is a deposit in the bank of self-belief. When his moment comes, he draws upon that account effortlessly. The world calls him talented, but what they are really seeing is the quiet accumulation of earned competence. Confidence is not arrogance, in fact, it is its opposite. Arrogance is insecure, always seeking proof and validation. Confidence is humble, content to let results speak. It does not compare or compete for attention because it has no need. When a man knows what he can do, he no longer needs to announce it. The great pianist does not brag about his performance, he sits at the piano and lets the music reveal it. The wise man does not claim to be wise, he simply speaks truth with clarity. Confidence without competence demands recognition. Confidence built on competence simply performs. There is no shortcut to this kind of certainty, it must be earned. You cannot talk your way into it, wish it into being, or imitate it from someone else. You must do the work. Every book studied, every skill practiced, every challenge faced adds another layer to it. And over time, that competence turns into quiet power, the kind that makes others trust you, the kind that allows you to trust yourself. For when you have built real skill, when you have mastered your craft, you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone because the work already has shocked the world not with words but with results. In every generation, there are those who talk loudly about what they will do, and there are those who simply do it. The difference between the two lies in action. Words are easy, abundant, and often forgotten, but results, real, tangible results, speak with a voice that cannot be ignored. The man who quietly dedicates himself to progress, who works when no one expects it, who advances without announcement, inevitably creates a moment where the world must stop and take notice. That is how true impact is made, not by promising but by proving. The desire to impress others often weakens the will to improve. When people talk too soon of what they plan to achieve, they rob themselves of the energy needed to achieve it. Each word spoken becomes a substitute for action. The wise man keeps his vision guarded not out of secrecy, but out of respect for its power. He knows that every goal needs silence to mature. He works while others discuss, studies while others boast, and perfects his craft while others seek attention. Then, when the time comes, his results speak for him in a language more powerful than any speech could deliver. To shock the world, one must first surprise himself. He must do more than he thought possible, push further than he believed he could, and remain consistent when no reward is in sight. Greatness often begins unnoticed, like a seed pushing through the soil, unseen yet alive with potential. The man who continues through the quiet years, who refuses to quit when recognition is absent, builds momentum that cannot be contained. And when the fruit of his labor finally appears, it seems sudden to everyone but him, for he knows how long he has been planting and pruning in silence. The world is moved by evidence, not intention. It honors those who deliver, not those who promise. History remembers the builders, not the dreamers who never began. The individual who lets his work become his message needs no defense, no persuasion. His achievement becomes self-evident. People may question his methods, doubt his motives, even ignore his efforts, but they cannot deny his results. Results end all arguments. So do the work quietly. Let your actions gather force like a tide beneath the surface. Let your consistency become your signature, your persistence your declaration. One day, without warning, the world will look up and find itself in awe of what you've done. And you will not need to explain how, for the evidence will be written in the undeniable language of accomplishment. Focus is the bridge between who you are and who you wish to become. Too often, people scatter their attention across countless pursuits, believing that motion alone will carry them forward. They attend meetings they do not need, chase trends that do not serve them, and allow every distraction to dictate their energy. But true progress requires a single-minded devotion to purpose. The man who concentrates his effort on what matters most builds a bridge stronger than any circumstance, more reliable than luck, and more enduring than talent alone. Focus is not simply paying attention, it is the deliberate choice to invest your time, energy, and thought into what produces results. It is the refusal to allow fleeting desires or outside opinions to pull you off course. Every great achievement in history has its origin in this quiet, relentless attention. The scientist who discovers a breakthrough, the artist who creates a masterpiece, the entrepreneur who builds an empire, all began by focusing intensely on their chosen endeavor while the world continued to chatter. Focus transforms potential into reality and action into accomplishment. The distracted mind accomplishes little, while the focused mind creates endlessly. Consider the man who spends hours reacting to emails, notifications, and interruptions believing he is busy, versus the man who dedicates the same hours to deep work and solitude. One finishes the day exhausted with nothing to show, the other moves closer to his vision with measurable progress. Focus amplifies every effort, making each hour, each decision, each action compound into results that astonish those who never understood the power of concentrated attention. Focus also shapes character. It teaches patience, discipline, and resilience. To concentrate, one must resist temptation, delay gratification, and prioritize what is essential over what is merely urgent. The bridge from mediocrity to excellence is crossed one focused step at a time. Each decision to direct attention toward growth rather than distraction strengthens not only skill but also self-confidence, creating a momentum that becomes difficult to interrupt. Ultimately, focus becomes both shield and engine. It protects the individual from the chaos of the world while simultaneously propelling him toward his goals. The man who masters focus does not rely on motivation, circumstance, or chance. He builds daily, incrementally, deliberately, and as he walks this bridge, he discovers something remarkable. The world notices not because he demanded attention, but because focused action has a way of speaking louder than words ever could. So, how do you begin? Start today. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Begin with small, deliberate actions. Read that book, write that plan, take that first step toward your vision, and then repeat it tomorrow and the next day until it becomes your nature. The man who directs his focus inward becomes unstoppable outwardly. You see, life doesn't reward the loud, it rewards the consistent. It rewards the person who, even in obscurity, continues to plant seeds of greatness. One day, those seeds will bloom in full view of the very people who once doubted you. The secret is simple: when you focus on yourself, you change. And when you change, everything else must follow. Now take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, and begin. Start focusing on the only person you can truly control, you. Do it quietly, steadily, and relentlessly. And soon enough, the world will have no choice but to turn and ask, "How did you do it?" That's when you'll smile, because you already know the answer. Tonight, take one decisive step toward your personal growth. Turn off the noise, open a page, set a goal, and act upon it. Do not wait for permission or applause. Focus on yourself, and soon you'll shock everyone.